Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the Path of Rage and today's weekly coverage of Star Citizen. We've got the SQ42 update for development for March. We have some news about water and H2O inside Star Citizen, and we're going to go over Star Citizen Live as well, where they discuss the personal hangars and the new ship management system and how that will all work, why it's been delayed from the initial 323 release, and when it will come in a subsequent 323 point patch. We're also going to change the format up of this show a little bit, where instead of going over each and everything in the updates and making this video nearly an hour long every week, instead of giving you a TED Talk, I'm going to highlight the things that stand out the most to me while showing the screenshots that you can read for yourselves, and that way we'll keep the video to a reasonable time while still getting out all the information that you guys are looking for. In the meantime, we have a lot to go over for this episode, so I am RageEgg Games and let's get stuck into it. First up is the SQ42 monthly report for March, beginning with the AI content team that first improved interactivity of the NPCs above the Javelin Gauntlet in-game, adding dynamic conversations and just better reactive responses to the NPCs to make it seem more lifelike. They changed the size of the trolley for cargo, touched up mattresses for deformation with the mattress and the animations for the bunk beds for more reactivity and more realism and immersion. NPCs now react better with wall-based buttons, and the AI can carry boxes and press buttons simultaneously now. Also, refinements to walking behaviors were made so that NPCs look more convincing and real while avoiding critical scenes. The AI features team continued to iterate and polish features for specific scenarios in the levels. They worked through some technical debt and made development improvements to functionality and other features. The AI tech team fixed bugs and made improvements to NPCs regarding the elevators and trolleys. And they also progressed with the task of NPCs driving ground vehicles, which is going to be kind of nice and definitely much needed, especially when you go to the distribution centers. You can see they're big enough for ground vehicles that you'll want the NPCs driving them around. They're fixing that up. NPCs will stick closer to a designated path without overshooting during turns, and now they have to work on collision avoidance. Animation team worked on animations and design work for story scenes and backgrounds, and made progress on EVA as well as combat animations for various enemy classes, and are currently improving AI leisure on the core ships and working towards final result for first two dressing animations. On the gameplay story side, they made substantial progress on Chapter 1, revising the golden path to the level, which everyone seems to be happy about. New mocap is being shot to overhaul a few of the Chapter 1 scenes, and mobiGlass will be showing text appear on it as players dictate a message, and a huge update was completed on a two-person scene in Chapter 4. This now uses standard data pads throughout and looks better and brings the scene more in line with the rest of the game world. They finally received further audio and facial data for Chapter 5, incorporating it into the relevant scenes. On the graphics and VFX programming side throughout March, a lot of the focus was on bug fixing, especially for the features that are being developed for Squadron and being ported over into the persistent universe. Performance scaling options were added to the water simulation. Support for distance collisions were completed to be more accurate. Vulcan has been added in, and they continue to work on performance issues to get it closer to Direct 3D. They're reworking the shaders that need compiling when the game starts. Global illumination has been worked on as well. And the Planet Tech team started work on Planet Tech 5 now, required to set up spatial partitioning, whatever that is. They're trying to figure out how this will work with server meshing and crash recovery. and they introduced the concept of default planets for the internal editor, so it's trivial for anyone to create and use a planet for testing. And on the VFX programming side in particular, they added water improvements, making changes to the augmented reality layer, and various muzzle flash and projectile virtual effects in the verse. The narrative team continued to add additional narrative touches, including fluff things like terminals and screens displaying news headlines for the day. They added mission-specific deliverable items that needed to be fleshed out with a bit more lore. They made a pass-over objective text to make sure it's as clear as possible. And this is all going alongside with reviewing the levels for polishing and improving the storyline and pacing of the gameplay moments in the game. The tech design team provided interactable support across multiple entities and chapters. For flight, they reworked the enemies to make them more difficult and responsive, and a small change was made to ensure that characters fly slowly when they lead quantum travel. Bugs were fixed for flight with, including issues with quantum travel target selection. This was a big one. AI not using gimbals, and the Drake Cutlass being invulnerable when shot from behind. Yeah, that needed to change badly. They also had some general support, coordination, and bug fixing across the project. The UI team was working on its player-facing UIs, such as the mobiGlass and what have you. They're currently optimizing the opening level to improve the first-player experience, and they're working on the UI seen in cinematic sequences designed for brand visuals and created screens that the actors can react to. And finally, VFX overall just continued to support all the other teams with a focus on optimization at the current time. Moving on to Inside Star Citizen. This Inside Star Citizen's focus was water in the verse, and they were talking about how difficult water actually is to get right, because the surface has to be dynamic to look proper with reflections and foam on the waves. A foggy layer has to be added under the surface to show proper light scattering and just look right all over. Splashes need to be added as well to make it look natural, and so on. They've spent a lot of time on water to make it look more realistic, as players will instantly notice anything wrong with how it looks. Very much like the Uncanny Valley for faces, we all know what water looks like, and when it doesn't look right, it stands out like a sore thumb. Funny side note is that the foam on the surface in-game was actually sourced from a photograph of a pan of soapy water. Since players can enter the water, they spent time making sure the water line cutting along the visor looks right, along with visuals when under the water, making sure light is refracted properly, visibility looks right as to how far you can see, the time of day, that kind of thing. Ships flying low over the water will cause the rooster tail effect based on the size and the speed of the ship, and hovering ships will also cause the water vapor to spray up from the surface, adding more realism to the game. The team also tied the physics system to the water in order to properly show it reacting to physical objects entering it, from bullets and guns to the player model to full ships or parts of ships that have fallen off. They want this to work without having an impact on bandwidth and server performance, however, and so they ended up going with a method that it's done on the client and visual only, which gives the developers the best of both worlds when it comes to performance. I highly recommend you watch this episode of Inside Star Citizen yourselves, as this was a very informative one. It gets into a fair bit of detail about how the programming was done and the steps they took to get it, and to be fair, I think it's worth more than just this quick summary. Check it out, link in the description below. Moving on to Star Citizen Live, this episode's focus was the instance hangars, the cargo elevators, and their related features, and they've been pushed back to a 3.23 point build. They will not come out with the first 3.23 patch. Several factors went into making this delay happen, with Chad McKinney stating it's still quite close and it won't be another 6-month delay or anything like that. The item bank and the freight elevator kiosk UI needed a further pass, and especially stability problems with the hangar instancing, ASOP and terminal, and the transit flow are part of what's holding the build back, as they could actually make the game fully unplayable for us. They also felt that It would make for a more efficient use of time to focus on polishing up the current 323 patch that players will get their hands on by the end of April, and then finish up the personal hangar and cargo features in the point patch, which I can't really fault them for. 323 is a massive patch, and it's bringing in massive changes. I can wait another point or two into this patch cycle, another month or so, to get the new instance hangars. When asked about uninvited players in your personal hangar, CIG said that they will be treated similarly to how the impound function works for improperly parked ships right now. The uninvited player will get a warning to leave, and once that time frame has passed, which they didn't say exactly how long, but roughly what you can expect, again, from the impound function, once that time has passed, they will be teleported out of the hangar automatically in this first release. Hangars will also be armistice zones, so weapons won't be usable, although you still will be able to use the multi-tools. Party members will have access to your hangars even if you aren't there. They can use the hangar kiosk as well, and this is being done to make sure that multi-crew gameplay is accessible to the players, more accessible, pardon me. When going to the ASOP terminals, players will see a list of their personal hangar, if they have it at that location, along with the hangars of anyone in the party at that location. Kicking a player from the party will kick them from the hangar as well. Party members will be able to use the freight elevator and item bank in someone else's hangar to access the items in their own inventory as well. Security and permissions to access other players' inventory is still being worked on, so that's a future consideration. The size of the hangar is based on the size of the largest ship that players currently own, and if a player buys a bigger ship afterwards, they will be given a basic, properly sized temporary private hangar. Basically exactly what we have now, with the difference being that the hangar will still be there and persist with anything you put in it until you log out and or leave the location. Doing so will remove this private hangar and everything in it, just like the hangars in the current live build, and players will get a warning that they're about to lose anything that's left in it. Think of it more as a rented hangar than your own personal one. It will go away when you leave. Instance hangars will start out only in the home locations for the first release of this feature, with CIG saying they also want players to have the ability to rent personal hangars at other locations as well. The home location will still be permanent in this release, but they did say that moving home locations will be something for further development. Grimhex and stations anywhere that currently have hangars are all planned to have the ability to be selected as a home location going forward. It's just that the main landing zones are the focus of this first Tier 0 release. There is no occupancy limit in your personal hangar besides actual space available, and players who bedlog from the ship while in the permanent or personal hangar will still wake up in the habs for now, with the ability to spawn in the hangar being looked at in future releases. It is something they said they want to do, it's just not yet. Personal flare items for the hangars, such as the fish tank, won't be available for this release, as those assets need to be updated to the current standards, but they did say that there will be furniture available for the hangars as well in the 323 release. Auto-loading cargo will only work at landing areas with hangars, so outposts without them will still require manual loading. They will have a cargo elevator that you'll put stuff in and take it out of, but you will have to manually load the cargo at the outposts, and they will only trade in 1 or 2 SCU boxes. Larger cargo runs will focus on the larger cargo zones, such as stations and distribution centers, and this will help represent both small and local trade routes, long haul and high volume trade routes at the same time. Manual loading as well is also meant to be more profitable and possibly quicker method of shifting cargo, but the devs said that they also want the pricing and timing on auto loading and unloading to make sense. The timing will be based on the size of the cargo boxes being moved, not just the amount of cargo, as moving 700 SCUs of cargo in 32 SCU boxes will certainly take less time than doing so with 700 SCU of 1 SCU boxes. They briefly touched on cargo decks and how to improve them and make them actually useful in the verse. As CIG is aware, they are fairly useless at the current time. There's a few of them in the stations around the verse, and yeah, aside from going in there to use the kiosk to get a multi-tool or some mining attachments, the cargo zones have no real use right now. They do intend to do something about that, obviously. One thing they did talk about is that players won't be able to sell cargo from hauling missions instead of delivering it to the required destination unless they go to someplace shady such as Grimhex. But even then, the prices will be highly reduced. This is to encourage players to actually finish missions, not just, oh, I'm going to take a cargo mission that gives me a full hold of cargo, but instead of getting the small amount of money here, I'm going to take it and sell it at Grimhex for a big profit and break the mission. They don't want that. They want us to actually follow through, and this is how they're going to do it. They're going to make the sale prices of these mission-related cargo much reduced. They also mentioned that the ship lift in the personal hangars that comes up from the floor won't allow multiple vehicles to be called up at once in this first 323 release. Ships and or ground vehicles will have to be moved off the lift in order for players to call another one in. If there's room in the hangar for you to put it to the side, which with these ground vehicles I could see happening, go right ahead. And then call up your ship and you can load all your vehicles that way. But I can't really see there being enough room in a sized hangar to take the ship off of the cargo grid and off of the ship lift to bring something else up. But in any case, you won't be able to call up, say, 2 arrows on your ship lift, even though it's big enough to call up a reclaimer. 1 ship or 1 ground vehicle at a time only. And that is it for our weekly Star Citizen update. I hope you found this informative, folks. I hope that your excitement level for Star Citizen is just as high as mine, and I certainly hope that CIG continues moving forward at this pace with the level of improvements that we're seeing from patch to patch. I would speak a bit more about the current 323 build, but I really wouldn't be able to say too much about it that I haven't said already. Other than, they've fixed certain bugs. Some of the readability is better. But one of the things that we were really looking forward to was the personal hangars. That's not in there right now. Again, anything that I would be saying about this current build is just repeating what I've said in the last few episodes. I highly encourage anybody watching this to get in on this PTU once the wave becomes available. We're currently in wave 1. We should be hitting wave 2 anytime now, possibly even by the time this video goes out. It changes so quickly. But I can't wait for 323 to get in your hands, folks. It is a massive change to the game. It's kind of hard to overstate how much different it makes Star Citizen play, and when they get more and more of the bugs fixed and more of the stability down, then I think we are going to be in for a really good time with this game. In the meantime, we're going to call it there for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up if you did. If not, give me a thumbs down and tell me exactly why you think this video was shit. Help me grow the channel and subscribe if you're new and you haven't done already. And until next time, I've been Rage at Games, and I will see you in the verse.